First things first, a personal friend of mine, our next speaker, Andy Spudfit, who ate only potatoes for an entire year. People are freaking out about, where do you get protein? What about this? What about that? This guy blew all them excuses out of the water and lived, thrived, survived, and actually made massive gains in the improvement of his health and well-being from eating a potato-only diet. All different kinds of potatoes, only potatoes, nothing but potatoes for an entire year. It's an amazing story. So please give a warm round of applause for Andy Spudfit. There you go, bro. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. G'day, everyone. Hope everyone's feeling good. Thank you for having me. It's a big day for me. I'm excited to be here. I've heard so much about the Adelaide Vegan Festival, and yeah, here I am, finally. Cool. All right, so my story starts a long time back. It's not just the beginning of the potato year. It's, there was a lifetime leading up to that. I've been overweight my entire life. I was bullied as a young boy at school for, you know how kids are. That was me going through school. And then as a teenager, I actually ended up becoming an elite marathon kayaker. And I was racing all around the world. And even through that period of my life where I was training between 4 and 6 hours a day, I was still 5 to 10 kilos overweight, even as an elite athlete. And in hindsight, that 5 to 10 kilos was probably the difference between me being one of Australia's best kayakers and maybe being one of the world's best kayakers. Maybe if I knew then what I know now, who knows, I might have gone to the Olympics. I was high up in that sport, but it's not something I lose any sleep thinking about. It's just an interesting sort of side story. So yeah, as with most people who have been overweight their whole lives, I tried every diet you can think of, just anything. I replaced meals with shakes. I did that Atkins, keto, all that sort of stuff. I did paleo, and I even went vegan. I've been vegan for nearly 13 years now, and I went vegan a long time ago thinking, well, I went vegan for ethical reasons, trying to do it for the animals, but in the back of my mind I was thinking, yeah, this is going to help me lose weight, and that didn't work either. So over the years, I just, as people do, I just progressed and gradually put on weight, and I went from being, as an elite athlete, 5 to 10 kilos too heavy, and then when I stopped competing, I gradually put on a bit more weight, and I got up to being 20 kilos overweight, and I was still keeping really fit, but yeah, I just couldn't shed that weight. That was a really tough time, and then 6 years ago, my son is 6 now. My first son was born, and at that point in time, all of my motivation to exercise went out the window. When you're getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night for that first few months of having kids, any parents out here know what it's like. That first few months is hard, and all that motivation to keep fit just was gone. And with that, my weight piled on because that extra amount of exercise I was doing was gone, and the weight just piled on, and I became big, morbidly obese, about 60 kilos more than I am now. And that was a tough time in my life. And over that period of putting on all that weight, it wasn't just getting heavier, my psychological state was going very, very fast downhill, and I became clinically depressed and anxious, and basically became a recluse and just kept to myself. I avoided social contact whenever I could, and I was a school teacher at the time, and I used to be the first guy organising all the social functions. I would be in the staff room joking around with everyone, and I gradually withdrew, and during break times I would stay at my desk and I would never go out to anything, and I became very, very depressed. And I got to the point where at least once or twice every day, and I didn't understand it at the time, I didn't know what was going on, but I would break down and cry at some point during the day, and I would have to find myself a quiet space. No one in my life knew this was happening, but usually I would go to the toilet and cry by myself in there, gather myself, and then go back on with the day. And yeah, my life was a mess. So one particular day, it was a beautiful day, and I decided to take my son to the playground, and we walked along a lake, a beautiful sunny day. The sunlight's bouncing off the water, the grass is green, it's just glorious. And on that walk to the park, the tears came, and there was nowhere for me to hide, and I ended up sitting on the side of the path on the grass, crying with my little 2-year-old boy sitting on my lap and wiping my tears away and telling me he didn't want me to be sad. And at that point in time, I realised that my little 2-year-old son was doing a better job of looking after me than I was. And and that was really unfair. Sorry, that's that was really unfair, and I didn't like that at all, because I didn't want to be a burden on anyone, let alone my little boy who shouldn't have to worry about looking after his dad. So I pulled myself together, got up and got going, and we went to the playground, and he had a great time, and he laughed, and I pushed him on the swing and did all that stuff, and then we went home, and on the walk home, I was thinking about how, as a teacher, I'd been a teacher for 15 years at that point in time, and I realised that 90% or more, pretty much every kid I've ever taught, really, ends up being a lot like their parents. When you do parent-teacher interviews, it all makes sense. When a kid turns up with their parents, suddenly everything makes sense, and you understand why the kid's the way they are, because you meet their parents. And I thought to myself, that was the scariest thought I could possibly have, that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried to be a good dad, my boy was going to end up like me, and that was the last thing I wanted for him. That was really, really scary. So I decided then that I had to do something. I didn't know how to do anything about my depression. I thought that was something I was stuck with forever. But I did think, okay, there's got to be a way to lose this weight. There has to be a way. And if there's nothing I can do about the depression, at least instead of my boy growing up to be depressed and fat, he can grow up to be just depressed. Maybe that's something. So I got started, and the next day I started with this new eating plan. I went green smoothies, I went salads, I did all these healthy lunches, and I got up at 5 a.m. every day, and I started training, and I did really well. I had a really good month. I stuck with it for a month. And by the end of the month, I was getting fitter. I wasn't weighing myself, but I could tell I was getting lighter. My clothes were looser. Everything was going well. And on that 30th day, I thought, yeah, this has been a really good month. I deserve a reward. I'm going to reward myself for a good month. So I thought, tonight I'm just going to have one slice of pizza for dinner, and that'll be a good reward for a good month. So I did that. I ordered pizza. Of course, you can't order one slice of pizza. So I ordered a family-sized pizza. I don't know why I did that. I only wanted one slice. I could have ordered a small, but I ordered a family-sized pizza. And then I sat down to watch a movie, and I had my one slice of pizza, and then I put the empty box, or not the empty box, the box of pizza over in the kitchen, and it was sort of out of sight but not out of mind. And I watched the movie for about half an hour, and I thought to myself, you know what? 2 slices of pizza is not going to hurt. It's been a month. I've done really well. 2 slices of pizza will be okay. I'll just get up extra early tomorrow and do some extra training to make up for it, and things will be okay. So I went and got that second slice of pizza. And long story short, obviously you know where this is going. The whole family-sized pizza got eaten, plus a box of ice cream, plus a 2-litre bottle of Coke. It was the mother of all binges. And of course I didn't get up extra early and do the extra training, and I didn't have a healthy breakfast, and I didn't have a healthy lunch, and in my mind I'd just ruined everything, and what's the point of continuing on? So I was feeling really depressed and sorry for myself the following afternoon, and like yet another diet that I'd done that I've failed on. And this time though it was extra sad, because I wasn't just failing myself. I'd had this realization about my son, and I was so upset because I couldn't even do it for him. It wasn't even about me, it was for him this time, and I just couldn't even do it. And I just was a total mess, and I was crying and doing, it was a horrible sight, I'm sure. But so in that depressive state, I thought, I just need something else. So I went to the fridge and I got a beer. And of course, my warped mind thinking a beer is going to make everything good, but that's what I did. And I took the beer back to the fridge, and as I sat on the couch and cracked the beer, I had this sudden realization that the way I'd been treating food my whole life was the way an alcoholic would treat this beer in my hand. Now, everyone, I'm sure, has known an alcoholic who has been able to do a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year even, without drinking alcohol, and then they'll say, oh, it's my best mate's Bucks night, I'm just going to have one beer tonight, and then I'll go back to being sober tomorrow and everything's okay. And sure enough, that one beer quickly becomes full-blown alcoholism again. And that's the way it works with alcoholics. And I could see that my behaviour mirrored that. I was the same all the way through. And I thought to myself, at first that was extra depressing because an alcoholic couldn't quit alcohol. A heroin addict can quit heroin. A smoker can quit smoking. A gambler can quit gambling. And I'm not saying food addiction's worse than any of those. I don't have experience with those. But at least you can quit those things. And with food, you can't quit. You've got to eat. And that was extra depressing because I thought, no, I'm just stuck with this. There's nothing I can do about it. But then I started thinking, okay, I can't quit food, but maybe I can get close to it. Maybe I can quit some things but not others. I wonder how close I could get to actually quitting food. I wonder if there's one food that I could eat exclusively and quit everything else. And that would be as close as I could get to treating my food addiction using the abstinence model that an alcoholic would use. And I wonder if that would do anything for me. And these are all questions that had no answers because no one had ever done it before. So I got researching. And I spent 6 weeks researching potatoes, and I found out that potatoes have all the protein we need. They have all the calcium we need. They have all the different vitamins and minerals. Obviously, everyone knows they've got carbohydrates. They've also got a little bit of fat. The Irish population survived for a couple of centuries on only potatoes, or close to only potatoes, not strictly only potatoes like I did, but close to it. And they went through a population boom, and they were big and strong and fit and healthy, and it was noted at the time by writers that they were bigger and stronger and more attractive than their English neighbours because they had this big, healthy diet of potatoes. And there was numerous examples and lots of science to back this up. So I got to this idea that, okay, if I wanted to quit all foods except one and use this abstinence model to treat my food addiction, then potatoes is the go. And I'd done all this research, and by coincidence, it was 4 days until New Year's Day of 2016. That was 4 days away. So anyone who's ever done a diet before knows that diets don't start till Monday, right? That's the way I thought. But in this case, my diet's not going to start until January 1st. And at that point in time, I was debating with myself about, do I want to do maybe a month? Do I want to do 2 months? Maybe 100 days? I'm just looking for a round number to do it all. And it came to my mind that maybe if I'm starting on the 1st of January, maybe that's just a good time to just go through to the next 1st of January. Maybe I should just do a whole year and see what happens. So I don't really have a justification for that. It just felt like a good idea. So I decided to give it a try. And at first that was a super scary thought because, like I've already said, I failed at every single diet I've ever done. If I had been successful at dieting and if I had some sort of amazing willpower or whatever, then I would have been able to stick with one of the other million diets that I'd tried. But at this point in time, I knew it was a good idea, but I didn't think I had it in me to do it. I really thought that was something that was too hard. It was a step too far, and I wouldn't be able to stick with that for an entire year. And I was, as I explained, I was clinically depressed and anxious, and I thought of myself as just a giant failure. And I thought, what if I'm too weak? What if I'm not strong-willed enough? What if everything fails? What if I let my son down again? All these sorts of things. And this was actually the biggest turning point in my life, that I had this moment where I thought, I just need to be fair on myself here. Yeah, I might fail. Chances are I probably will fail, let's be honest. I probably won't be able to do this because I've never been able to do anything that well. But there's also a chance that I'll do it, that I'll succeed. And I owe it to myself to spend a little bit of time thinking about, what if I succeed? Just be fair on myself. I can think about what if I fail, but I also need to think about what if I succeed. And that little change in thought really got me to think, okay, let's just give it a try. The worst that can happen is I go back to living my life the way that I currently am. The best that can happen, who knows? It's a whole new level of life that I have no idea what's going to happen. But to be free of this food addiction I would have given anything for that at that point in time. And with no other ideas available to me, I decided to give it a go. So January 1, I started. And I ate only potatoes for breakfast. And my mind nearly exploded thinking about 366 more days of eating only potatoes. But one meal at a time, I got through it. And over the course of the year, actually after 1 month of doing that, in the beginning of February, a journalist found out that I was doing it, and that happened totally by accident. There's a big story behind that, but I never planned on sharing this with anyone. I thought eating only potatoes is the most boring thing a person could do, and no one would be interested in hearing about that. And besides that, I was depressed and anxious. I didn't really want to be in the public eye. I just wanted to keep it to myself. And there's a story behind it, but anyway, it got out on the 1st of February. This became a nationwide and global story, and I had a whole lot of troubles with so-called experts in the media getting angry with me and doubting what I was doing. And one of the things that I'll just go through a few of those things now. One of them was the typical thing that you always hear everyone talking about, everything in moderation. This guy's doing something crazy. You can't just eat only one food. You've got to do everything in moderation. And my answer to that was that, okay, I'm doing this for my food addiction. And it seemed so strange for me that after I made it clear that this was a food addiction thing and I'm trying to mimic the abstinence model of an alcoholic, no one would tell an alcoholic to drink beer in moderation. No one would tell an alcoholic to just have an occasional glass of wine. Pretty much everyone agrees that that's a recipe for disaster. And people just couldn't accept that I was trying to do the same thing with food. Another one was people saying that it's too extreme. Eating the way I was eating was too extreme. And my answer to that was that every super, ultra successful person throughout human history has been an extremist. And we have this negative connotation about this word extremism, extreme behaviours. In this day and age, when you say the word extremist, then you instantly jump to this negative idea. But I think Roger Federer is a tennis extremist. He doesn't do tennis. He doesn't just play a little bit of tennis on Wednesdays. He's every day, morning, noon, night, every day. He's doing tennis. And you could look at that from any walk of life. You could go back. Mozart. He didn't play piano in moderation. He didn't, just play a little bit of piano a couple of times a week. He was documented as practicing for up to 10 hours a day. If you want to be the best you can possibly be at anything, you have to do it to the extreme. And I wanted to get the best possible results I could for my own health and also for my son. I wanted to create a new life, and I wanted to be done with this food addiction that had dominated my life and really destroyed my life. I wanted to be done with it, and I didn't want to do that by halves. I wanted to take that to the extreme, and I think sometimes extreme can be good. You can be extremely good. How are we going for time? Yeah. All right. So yeah, that was a big thing, just to think, yeah, it's okay to be extreme. It's okay to do things that are wildly different to what the rest of the population is. That's okay, and sometimes it's good. Everyone who is successful does things that are very different to what everyone else is doing. Another, as you can imagine, another criticism that I got from the experts was about that you should eat a balanced diet. This is not a balanced diet. This potato-only thing is not balanced. You've got to eat a balanced diet. And it got me thinking, what is a balanced diet? Why do we even have the term a balanced diet? That's a term that experts again came up with. They came up with this idea for a balanced diet. Why would they have come up with that term? And it makes sense that, okay, we live in a world where a lot of people are not getting all of the nutrients that they need, not getting all the vitamins and minerals and protein and all that stuff that people talk about all the time. And then people get unhealthy because they're not getting all those minerals and all those nutrients in the right balance. So these experts needed to come up with a term, a balanced diet. We need to tell people to get a balanced diet, get a balance of all the nutrients. And if I'm eating a diet where I'm getting all of those minerals, all those vitamins, all the macronutrients, fibre, everything I need, doesn't that mean I'm eating a balanced diet? Sure, it doesn't have all the ingredients that most people have, but if I'm getting everything I need to keep my body healthy, surely that's the reason why that term a balanced diet was invented in the first place. So when I said that, the experts seemed to have no answer. One of the problems I had, that's the sort of the crux of the complaints that the experts had, and now I'll get on to a couple of the problems that I personally had. So one of them was this idea of sacrifice. I was one that I would like to eat a cake, for example, not just a slice of cake. Notice I said cake. I'd like to eat cake, and that was one of my sort of weaknesses. And when I thought about giving up cake, about sacrificing a cake, that was a big deal for me because as a really depressed and anxious guy, and with not much going well in my life, I would have a long bad day at work or something, and then And really the only thing I was looking forward to in my mind was when I could just sit down and eat some cake, and that would make me feel better. And the thought of not having cake and having potatoes instead felt like a huge sacrifice for me. Felt like a really big thing that I didn't want to give up this cake, because it felt to me at that time like that was the only positive thing in my life, that it was the only thing that could give me some relief from all this mental anguish that was going on. And it felt like a huge sacrifice. And then I was thinking about that, and I realised that you never get to choose between either sacrifice the cake, on this example, but I think it's the same throughout every decision you make, every sacrifice in life. You never get to choose between either sacrifice the cake or don't sacrifice the cake. That's not the choice. The choice is always between two opposing sacrifices. And I realised that I had to put on one side, either sacrifice the cake or sacrifice my long-term health and happiness. It's always the way. You never get to choose between sacrifice or don't. It's either sacrifice this or sacrifice that. And I came up with this saying that if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. If you don't sacrifice your morning sleep in, then you will sacrifice getting fit and running the marathon that you need to get up early to train for. You know, if you don't sacrifice, you can apply this across every area of your life, but going vegan, if there's anyone out there who is not vegan and wants to be, if you don't sacrifice that cheese, it always seems to be cheese. If you don't sacrifice the cheese, even though you've got vegan cheeses available to you now if you want them, but if you don't sacrifice the cheese, then you'll sacrifice your own moral compass, I guess. It goes across all of life. Now, I want to make sure that people understand that this was not something that I did as a publicity stunt. Like I said at the beginning, it was just something I did for me. And it was not something I did to lose weight even. It was really, potatoes, it was just a vehicle for behaviour change for me. It was all about changing my behaviour, changing my relationship with food. And I hoped that in that process, changing my behaviour, changing my relationship with food, that I would then be able to consistently make good, healthy choices, and that would be freedom for me. That would be freedom from this food addiction, from this constant internal debate that was dominating my life all day, every day about what should I eat and when should I eat it. And that was really important to me. That was the aim, and then the byproduct was that I lost weight. And I was pretty happy about losing weight, but the aim was always I wanted to get over this addiction. And the last thing I want to point out is that I always get people telling me that, wow, you've got amazing willpower. You must be incredible to be able to do that for a year. And I'm just not. I just don't have amazing willpower. What I did was I reframed my choices, and I was able to, instead of allowing my emotions to make decisions for me, I was able to find a way to reframe my choices and reframe my thoughts and learn to make decisions based on logic and reason instead of willpower, and removing the emotion from the decision. So I'm not anything special. I'm nobody different from any one of you. I just learned a new way to think about food. That's all it is. So I hope you guys are all able to maybe use something from what I've said and hopefully change some aspect of your own lives for the better. And if not, I hope you just enjoyed the talk a little bit. And thank you for having me.
Thanks.
I think we're going to do a Q&A now.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Great talk. Quick question. Did you get regular checks with your doctor or health practitioner or that just to make sure things were tracking fine and there wasn't any deficiencies or any issues that were underlying that you weren't symptomatic for?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I did have blood tests and regular medical checkups throughout the year. All of my blood readings just got better throughout the year. Every time I got a test, it got better. Also had DEXA scans, which measure your bone density and strength and bone weight, and that just stayed the same actually throughout the year. So I didn't get any loss of bone or anything like that. All of my health markers got better and better as the year went on. So yeah, thank you.
So Andrew, really interested in what you're saying about the abstinence model and the comparison with the alcohol. And I'd always assumed from knowing about your story that a big factor of it was just taking choice out of the equation. You know, like I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat. I'm eating potatoes. Was that a part of your thinking, or was that a consequence of actually eating only potatoes?
Yeah, that was the the original biggest part of my thinking was that I just wanted to try to copy this abstinence model that had been documented to work so well for alcoholics. I just really wanted to follow that model as closely as I could. And then along the way, I learned a lot. And that removing decisions from my life was something that after I started, I realised how important that was, because I didn't have to constantly be thinking about, like at breakfast time, what I'm going to have for dinner. I'm going out with friends for dinner in a week, and looking up the menu ahead of time and trying to figure out, I didn't have to worry about any of that. So yeah, that was a big part of it, but it wasn't really part of my planning. It's just something I came to learn about later on, yeah.
You just mentioned eating out. How did you go with eating out, just eating Spud?
Yeah, that was it was pretty simple in the end, really. If I ate out at a restaurant, I would just look on the menu before I went, and if there's potatoes anywhere on the menu as part of any dish, I knew that they would have potatoes there, so I'd just ring them up and say, hey, I'm doctor's orders, I'm eating only potatoes, can you just microwave a few potatoes for me? And it was easy. I only went to one restaurant for the whole year that said they couldn't do anything for me, and that was fine. I just had a beer with my friends, and I had potatoes in my car, so I just went out and ate a couple of potatoes, and then went back to the table. Sorry, it was all good.
Hi, I loved your talk. As far
Thank
as
you.
being a mum and having to prepare meals, how did you do them? Was it just microwave potatoes, and was there a limit to how many you'd have at a meal?
Good question. I'm glad you asked the limit thing. I had one really important rule, and that was to eat as much as I felt like whenever I felt like it. There's no limits at all. I just eat as much as I felt like until I felt like stopping. The way I prepared was I had a son at the time too, and I was cooking for him. Basically every night I would make I had a pot that was like that big, a huge pot, and I would just boil up a huge pot of potatoes every night, or I'd put a couple of full trays in the oven every night, and then I'd just have all my potatoes ready for the next day, and I'd just eat them until they were gone, and then make another big batch. It was pretty simple, yeah.
How you going? I've actually tried this too quite a while ago before I knew that you were doing it. I'm just really against the like carbs are evil sort of mantra.
Good.
And so I was just doing it from a scientific sort of perspective of is it really true that you can actually gain weight just eating like high carbohydrate foods like potatoes? And I didn't even last 3 weeks because I just found that meals just took forever to just get enough calories. Like I was eating like, I don't know, 2-3 kilograms of potatoes a day or something ridiculous. How did you go just getting enough in, and how many potatoes would you eat in a day?
Honestly, I didn't even think about it. It was not, I didn't care about how many calories I was eating. I just wanted to not be hungry. So if I wasn't hungry, if I didn't feel like eating, I didn't eat. And some days I would not have too many, and some days I would have a lot. Some days I was eating 4 kilos or more, and some days I would eat less than that. But on average, I don't know how many, I never actually counted the number of potatoes, but I knew how much I was buying per week, so I could average it out, and it worked out to be around 3.5 kilos a day on average. But yeah, it varied each day depending on a variety of factors, yeah. We're done?
That sounds delicious, bro. I'm doing it.
All right, thanks everyone. The tent just over here, come and talk to me. If you've got any more questions that I haven't answered, I'll be just there, and I've got a couple of books there that you can have a look at and maybe buy if you're interested as well. But yeah, I'll be here all day, so if you've got any questions, just see me over there.
And you got a podcast? Still doing that?
It's baby gets in the way.
Okay, all right.
I'll get back to it sometime,
Please.
and I'll have you back on.
Sounds good, bro. Please give Andy a massive round of applause.